This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Welcome. If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea.
Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. If you, like me, have ever found yourself standing at a crossroads, unsure which way to go, maybe caught in a little bit of a loop of overthinking, or even just knowing it's time for a change or a big move, but not knowing how to begin, this conversation is going to be so great for you. I'm joined today by life and career coach Naama Zusman, who's built her career around helping people navigate transitions and also finding work that feels meaningful and sustainable. We cover some beautiful territory in this conversation, including how to move through crossroad moments with more ease and trust in your inner wisdom, and also how to get out of your head and into your heart and actually experiment in order to get clarity instead of just trying to think your way there. Both middle life and motherhood involve a lot of change and oftentimes upheaval. And I really want you to see the choice you have when you're in these situations. And I hope this heartfelt exchange with Naama really helps you loosen the grip of analysis paralysis and find your next right step. Let's dive in. Hi, Naama. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
Many middle-aged women face what you call crossroad moments. These are times when we have major choices or major transitions with tons of uncertainty and stress. And one of the things that really drew me to your work is that you flip this script a bit and how we even think about these transitions. And you talk about it as a possibility of this being a very empowering time in our lives instead of this time where we're kind of in self-doubt and beating up. So can we just start there with a little bit of broader perspective?
Yeah, sure. And I think it is a time of self-doubt, but that's part of the game. And so it's not about making it sweet and cozy. And, it's a time of uncertainty where we are usually in between two chapters. We are usually between something that's ending and a new beginning. And that messy middle is very uncomfortable. But I think probably most of your listeners, if they reflect back on moments like that, where they felt really deeply uncomfortable, these transition moments, looking back, they could see how that was such a significant time in their lives and reflect on the opportunities that came out of that, the doors that opened, the growth, the evolution, the realizations. So, of course, when we are in the thick of it, it doesn't feel comfortable. But in retrospect, it's those moments that shift our lives, usually either to a better place or a better place within us, right? Like maybe it's more about the growth and what we learn. Often It's also that our life situation eventually changes for the better.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are talking about not sugarcoating it because it's easy to be like, oh, this is a chance to reinvent yourself. And it is, it deeply is. But I've been in what I now know as a liminal space where I closed a huge part of my identity down. And sitting in that murky middle and not knowing what's next is so uncomfortable, especially for women that are used to feeling expressed and like they're sharing their genius in the world. So I think that it's common for women to use the phrase, I'm stuck, and kind
Mm.
of repeat, I don't know, like to themselves to the point where it just becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. Can you tell us about self connection and intuition and how that can support us in moving past speaking out loud, I don't know, and maybe trusting, oh, I do know, and I need to remember how to listen?
Yes. And I love that you started with what we tell ourselves, right? That we are stuck, that we don't know. And I think that the moment we say, like, I don't know what I want, or I'm not a person who like can figure this out, we tell ourselves that we can't figure it out. We give ourselves permission not to find answers when the answers are always, without sounding too cliche or too woo woo, they are within us. Nobody else has the answers to the big questions about our lives. Whether I should take this job or not, or should I start a family, or should I start the business? These are like these big, meaningful life questions that we cannot let someone else answer it for us. We need to figure it out ourselves. And so it starts with saying, instead of maybe, I don't know what I want, it's, I have a question mark. I'm going through a season of question marks. I'm going to a season of exploring what it is I want, because how we talk to ourselves really matter. And I guess to answer your second question about like self-connection and intuition, we can do a whole episode, I guess, on that. But I think it starts with the biggest advice I give, especially for, women who have busy lives, who are navigating quite a lot for juggling, is that we start with small steps of like just listening to ourselves in the very day to day life, right? Basic stuff like, what do I actually want to eat? I think that often we just kind of, again, we hand this question to someone else. So let's say that your husband asks you, what do you want to have for dinner? And you're like, whatever you want to have. Or shall we order Thai or Italian? And you're like, yeah, I'm good with both. So I think it starts with really day to day, small, tiny decisions that we make every day. And we don't even notice that we often listen to what it is that we actually want. So we either kind of outsource it to someone else to decide for us, or we go for the should. So I think the food metaphor is really helpful because I think it's something that everyone can relate to, right? So let's say there's a salad or a pizza for lunch, and just practice just pausing for a moment. What do I feel like having? Do I feel like having the pizza or the salad, instead of going for maybe the should of, I should better eat the salad. So it's really kind of slowing down, not moving on autopilot, really noticing when we outsource our knowing and listening back to what it is that we want, tuning in to what we want in the very simple day to day decisions where it's really low risk. There is no pressure. There is no failure here. There is no right or wrong. I think that's really where it starts, especially like I said, for like busy women who are juggling a lot and don't often pause and ask themselves, like, okay, what it is that I actually want? What do I crave? What would feel most nourishing right now? How do I feel? How do I want to feel? What would help me feel this way? Just having that inner conversation on a day-to-day basis, I think that's where that relationship starts. How will you listen to your intuition with big life decisions if you don't listen to yourself with small daily decisions?
Yes, you're speaking my language. I could not be more aligned. And I'm glad that you brought this up because I think when people are at big crossroads like relationships, moves, career, like you said, like most women that are in my community have traversed one of these big crossroad moments or are in the middle of one of them. And it's like they want an answer and they want to connect with themselves for this answer for the big question, but they're not honoring or practicing the little yeses and the little self connection and the day to day. That's a really great way that you put it of just, practicing that. What do I want? I know what I want. I can listen to myself in these small ways that are embedded in our daily lives. Then we have that relationship with our intuition. So when it comes to the big stuff, it's not like, oh, hey, intuition, I've been ignoring you for like 10 years, but tell me what to do. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like opening the lines of communication, but you can't just go get married, right? Like you start flirting a little bit, then you start dating, then you maybe move in together. So it's like you're creating a connection with your gut, with your intuition, with your inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And there needs to be like a relationship that starts and builds up. You can even start to recognize what it sounds like, right? Because so many people, they don't know what it means to be guided by their gut or to listen to their intuition. We need to start with the small daily questions.
I completely agree with that. You've got a program called Try Before You Leap. And I haven't done the program, but just reading about it makes me excited to hear about some things that women might be able to try practically. I can speak from my own experience, so I just feel like it's helpful to see ourselves in stories. And I know when I was in kind of a murky middle place career wise, I spent so much time intellectualizing what was next. And it really wasn't until I got some feedback and like took some action that I was able
Mm,
to, move and get out of the stuck zone. Just by the title of what you teach, I'm guessing maybe you could share with us a little perspective on that and a place to start. If someone has been telling themselves that I'm stuck, I just don't know, what can we
mm.
do to tangibly move past that a little bit?
Yeah. So try before you leap it's actually a guide. So it's like a
Okay.
PDF guide. It's 44 pages and it's really a practical step by step guide that is designed to get people who are at that kind of career crossroads, especially. And they have all kind of directions that they are thinking about and they're stuck in analysis paralysis in what if I choose the wrong path, what if I choose something and then actually find out that I don't like it, like all these fears and questions of making quite a big step, a big change. And then what keeps them stuck is that they stay in their head, right? They like keep overanalyzing, keep overthinking, turning the decisions over and over in their head, every possible scenario, every what if, pros and cons list, all these things that just get you into your head even more and keep you even more stuck. And so I designed this guide to really help people to get out of their head into the real world.
Mm.
The try is all about like experimenting, having conversations with people, really exploring possible paths so they can see for themselves. It's always going to be a leap anyway. There are no guarantees. Nobody can promise you anything, whatever path you take. But at least when you start experimenting, not only you get some clarity through action and you get some clarity that you can feel in your body, right? Let's take an example. If you do an internship in some way or you shadow someone for a day, you can feel it in your body, right? If it feels good or not. So
Hmm.
you start gaining clarity through action, through your own lived experience, through having conversations with real people who actually do what it is that you're maybe interested in doing. And that gets you out of your head into action, into clarity. And usually it also builds momentum and creates opportunities. Like one thing leads to another. And that's the beauty, right? Like when you're feeling stuck, you have to do something. It doesn't matter if it's career or anything else. Taking action in the real world instead of sitting at home and doing a long pros and cons list is so much more effective.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I want to go a little bit deeper and just because you mentioned a few little nuggets in there, like try something, give yourself an experiment. So, one, call people. Like, people don't pick up the phone anymore. I do tell people to just like find some people in the industry you're thinking about and actually talk to them versus just like stalking people on LinkedIn and hoping it gives you clarity. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I get a lot of messages, cold messages on LinkedIn and whatever, Instagram. So I don't even open them anymore because often it's not very genuine. And so what we're looking to do with these conversations is to really have that intention of having just a genuine conversation with someone. And we reach out to that person with that intention. And I think it's best if you can call if you have the number, but if not, I would say email works better than I think messaging someone. Or if someone else can connect you to that person, I think that's just more effective. So this is more like on a practical level. But I think just approaching it from a place of curiosity and
Yeah.
openness and like genuinely wanting to have a conversation with that person rather than trying to get something. It's a very different energy that you kind of come to the conversation with.
Yeah, that's nuanced. And I feel like you are spot on in how you articulated that because it can take a little bit of humility. It can be a little awkward, especially if you're an established professional and you might be, I've talked to friends who are like, well, I kind of want to ask this person, but I feel kind of silly. And I really feel like people can energetically, especially women, not to, but I really feel like you can sense when someone's like, hey, I'm curious. Could I just ask you some questions about what you do? It's not like you are trying to network, which is not a bad word, but like a word that I don't love. I think when it comes from that place of sincerity, I feel like most people are genuinely receptive.
I think that people love helping. They love helping. So if you reach out to someone who you want to have a conversation with from this genuine place, they would love to help you. They really would. But it's coming from that place of curiosity, and that makes all the difference. Yeah, I think that people love to help each other. They love to talk about themselves, share their story, share their journey. So you come to that conversation also from a place of curiosity, but also it's less about you and more about the person and
Mhm.
hearing about them, their experiences, their stories, their journey, how they got to what they do, what they love about their work, what they day to day like, asking these questions, and they would really enjoy answering them. I think most people really love to talk about themselves.
That's super clear and I think really helpful. What's one other experiment that people could try that's kind of like the smallest possible thing someone could do to really kind of like put themselves in the room, for lack of a better term, and like get a feel for what it would be like to be living in this change?
Yeah, I think it really depends, obviously, on like what it is that you want to do. Like, if you want to start your business, that would be very different from if you want to transition to a different job, industry,
Right.
and so on.
Why don't we talk
So
about a move? How about that? Because we've been talking a lot about career, but what if someone wants to move somewhere and they're like, well, I don't know. Like, how do I know if I want to move there?
I love that. And I think to me, it would make sense, obviously, to first go and visit that place. And if possible, even like take an Airbnb and stay there for a longer period of time. Because I think if you go just for 5 days on a holiday, it's a very different experience than actually living somewhere. So if possible, if circumstances allow, I would try and go for a month, for example, if you can. Also, just again, having those conversations with people who are a bit like-minded people or a little bit in this similar maybe family situation, life situation. If you're, for example, a business owner, you might want to talk with another business owner, or if you're self-employed, or if you're in the corporate, like, you want to find someone who is a little bit in a similar world as you are and have chats with them. Ask them what they love about living in that place. If you have children, how are the schools there? How hard is it to get into the school, if that's a thing? Like all the questions that you are wondering about, just ask,
Yeah.
and the more people you talk with, the more insight you get. So I think that's a conversation on the conversation level. But then, like we said, like you can, I would say, visit the place if you can stay there for longer, because that again is a very different experience.
No, that's brilliant advice because I mean, I live in Chicago, and if a 20-year-old was asking me if they should live here, I mean, that's much different than how I would be able to relate at this point. I mean, I live in a neighborhood, I have a family, I know about the schools. So talking to someone that's kind of parallel in what your life or career looks like, I feel like you could get some really meaningful insight on how your life would look there, not just like whether it's a fun town or place. So that's super insightful. I appreciate that. I know that in your personal life, you've had a lot of moments with big moves and
Yeah.
career moves. What is one piece of advice you wish a younger Nama would have had when she was going through some of these transitions herself?
To be honest, I don't think I would change anything. I don't want to give my younger self, an advice, because I feel like based on what I knew then, I made the best decision. And so I don't know if there's any advice that I would give myself. I think in general, like for any transition, my advice would be to listen, right? Listen to what it is that your heart calls you to do. And I think that we need to also look at transitions. So, the different types of transitions. And that maybe also really connect to the very first, like, beginning of our conversation about being in that messy middle and that uncomfortable place. There are transitions that are circumstantial, right? We didn't see it coming. A door closes out of the blue, something shifts, we didn't expect it. And sometimes we can be happy about this change of circumstances because it actually works for in our favor. Sometimes we don't feel really happy about it, in the moment at least. In any case, it's going to be unsettling because it's a change. And as human beings, we don't like changes. That is our evolutionary response. That's part of our survival mechanism. And then there are the changes that we initiate, that we decide that we need to create in our lives, because maybe a feeling about, like, the way we feel about our path has changed because we evolve and we change. So the way we feel about past choices has changed. And also sometimes we decide to create change because something didn't really work out the way we wanted it to work, the way we expected. And so there is also a very big difference in the type of, like, transition that we're going through. But in any case, the transition is, I think that that's kind of where life happens. It's almost
Mm.
like we live our life and we enjoy our lives, we're present, we're all of that. And then something shifts, either externally, our circumstances, or we decide that this is not working anymore and we want to change. And so there's that messy middle and figuring it out, and it can last quite a long time or a short time. And then we move to a new chapter and we live that chapter, and then another transition again. And then again, we reassess, maybe realign, make some changes, and then move to the next chapter. So I think as long as we kind of keep listening to our life, that is the most important thing. And to realize that it is part of life to change and evolve and to move. And, it's not never going to be linear.
Yeah. Whew. You said some very, very wise things within there. I agree. I like that distinction. I know we're jumping around with examples, but there's lots of transitions women go through in middle age. And I feel like there is a difference between you got laid off and
Mm.
that's like unsettling for reasons, or you're in a period of either motherhood or career transition where you're feeling like it's off and you're ready for a change. Either way, I think it's universally, it's unsettling. But I love that you said that's where we live, is in these transitions, because part of it that's really coming through for me is I feel like women, especially, almost like cut themselves off from life until they have it figured out. And
Mm.
we really rob ourselves from the present moment and just like allowing ourselves to enjoy our lives despite the uncertainty, and what you're telling me is like it's going to be an ebb and flow of uncertainty forever. So that's a big practice to be able to be present and still allow yourself to live within these transitions, right?
Yes. And to see that it's almost like our life is created out of these transition moments that are just weaved together, right? And I think that if we can see that, then we can like maybe get even excited about the transition because, wow, where will this lead me? What will my next chapter be about? I lived before moving to the UK, I lived in the Netherlands, and my husband got a job offer in the UK. And when he shared about it, I was like, first really happy for him. And then I cried
Mm,
because it was like I felt really settled. I felt really
mm,
settled and like things, when you feel like things are really working out and you're in a good flow, and all of a sudden there's like this external change that happens. So in that moment, I didn't really want to move. But looking back, I'm so happy that this happened. Like so many wonderful things happened as a result of that opportunity. And I really took that opportunity and asked myself, okay, I have this and I didn't have children yet. And I told myself, I have this rare opportunity that you can sometimes get in life where you get to start over.
mm.
Like you get this blank page. And I found it really exciting. I think a lot of people can find it dreading, but I found it really exciting. Like I'm moving to a new country. I can do whatever I want. I can reinvent myself. Think if we can start seeing transition as something that is both scary, like I don't want to say that it's not scary and not unsettling, but also quite exciting, then life is can become quite like a journey and adventure.
Yeah. Well, I love that perspective of just looking at it as an opportunity for reinvention. What also is coming up to me as you're talking is I'll give you this random example that came to my mind. When I was in a writing course many moons ago, one of the coaches, writing teachers, whatever, said, before she said another word to the class, she's like, I want you to write down what not writing activity is most important to your writing. And I would guess, just from having been there myself, that when women are in this position where they're trying to intellectualize and make these big decisions, that they kind of tunnel vision a lot of their life energy towards that. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on actually just like setting it all down and spending time in other areas of our lives. And if you feel like that actually fuels and helps generate clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this question. I love that you asked it. And yes, absolutely. Because I think that when we are in the transition, when we are in the unknown, what do we want most? To find an answer.
Clarity. Yeah.
We want to solve it ASAP because it's uncomfortable not to know. And so we so desperately want to solve this, want to answer this question, want to find a solution, want to make the decision that we focus too much on it. And when you focus so much on something so intensely, your vision actually becomes blurry. And it's just like I like the metaphor of like holding a bar of soap, right? If you snatch it, it's going to slip.
Hmm.
But if you kind of hold it very in the right amount of pressure, let's say, you can hold on to it. And I think it's the same when you're trying to figure out something. It's not about ignoring the decision or the question, but it's also about not focusing on it so much that you can't see it anymore, that you're over analyzing it, or that the vision becomes so murky. Or sometimes what happens when we focus too intensely on something is that the answer that's already there in front of us, like screaming, we can't see it. And so, this idea of finding that sweet spot between trying to figure something out and at the same time not being obsessing, like not being obsessed about it, that's what we aim for. And a word I love to kind of give my clients and share is to simmer. We want to simmer over these questions, these problems. So that means that we don't cook something, on high heat, very up, like intensely. Kind of let it boil slowly. And I think that's how I would approach it. So yeah, doing things that bring you joy, going for walks, doing things that help you connect to your body, your intuition. And I think that also what can often be really helpful is to just do something completely different, like something that you've never done before, right?
Mhm.
Like if you tell yourself, oh, I'm not a creative person, like you never really tried anything creative, maybe sign up for like some kind of creative workshop. I think that that's when we can kind of loosen up our subconscious and like allow just these insights to come in because we're just busy doing something else. And we also can get new insight through new experiences, right? Because if we do the same thing again and again, we get the same insights. So if we just do other things that are not related to what we're trying to figure out, and especially if these are new things, we get new input, we get new insights, we can get clarity through that as well.
I love the simmer because it also is like this powerful permission slip that you don't have to over effort on this the whole time. It's like, okay, we're not gripping, we're getting curious, we're letting it simmer. I love that. And plus, you go and you take a weird dance class or something because you're like, I just need to. Sometimes that's when you actually meet a random and they work in the industry you're curious about. I feel like sometimes the world gives us a way easier door C if we stop gripping.
Yes, and that's part of the try before you leap idea and finding clarity and all of that is that we need to get out of our head and out of our like sofa
Yeah.
for things to happen. And when we do that, we make serendipity happen. And that's
Mhm.
the thing. That's when we can't meet that stranger if we didn't get out of our house and try something new.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's a much more fun way to traverse life and choice, right?
Yeah. And one more thing I would say is like, so Whitney, when do you have like these aha moments? When do you get those like insights?
Right. Usually when I'm like in the flow, like outside walking or not actually trying to think through something.
Yes, exactly. Or like when you're busy doing something completely different, but that you're kind of immersed in it. I would say like when I wash the dishes and like my
Hmm.
mind kind of wanders, but I'm
Yeah.
not trying to solve anything. I'm not trying to think about this thing. That's usually when you have those insights, right? In the shower, on the way to work, when you kind of let your subconscious loosen up, there's like space for clarity to come.
Ah, yes. Yes. We're coming up on time, but I want to make sure that we touch on something you talk about a lot, which is normalizing fear and doing it anyway. I have always thought about the death doula Bonnie Ware's book and the top regrets of the dying, and how one of them that's talked about the most is how people regret more what they didn't do versus what they did do. And I think when it comes to taking these leaps, that if they are heart aligned, I know we both want women to take. How do we know when fear is what's really actually holding us back?
Well, often it is fear that's holding us back, right? Like that is often the case. And so there are two ways I can answer this question. One is I can talk about, that kind of idea of fear versus intuition. How do I know if it's fear just trying to keep me safe in my comfort zone? Or is it my intuition telling me, don't do this? So that is one thing. And the other thing is understanding that fear is really not going anywhere. When we are making a change, we are always going towards the unknown. And that is scary for every human being because we are wired to be afraid of change, to stay away from change. Think about the jungle days. You don't want to change anything that hasn't killed you yet because there might be a lion waiting for you in the other side of the jungle. So don't go there because you don't know what's waiting for you there. But obviously we don't have lions and tigers, but our brain still thinks in this way. So our brain doesn't know the difference between a real life-threatening situation and you just wanting to do something different. So I think that there is something that is really liberating when you can just embrace that fear is part of the game. And actually, if fear wasn't there, there wouldn't be excitement either. It would just feel boring. It's only exciting because there is also a percentage of fear there.
All right. That's telling me that we need to just welcome that in and not wait until it doesn't feel scary anymore. Because, I can say that for my own, I've traversed things and I have my own business, but there's always going to be this fear. And you do kind of learn to be like, oh, hey, but you're not going to rule the roost, right? But it's still inherent when you're doing anything that's different. It's just part of it. But I can speak wholeheartedly that it just is not, it doesn't become such a thing, but it's still there. You just kind of are like, oh, okay, you're there, but I'm still going to move forward. Actually cultivate a relationship with it in a much different way, but that takes practice.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. You take the lead.
Yes.
And fear is going to be there somewhere, but it's not directing your choices.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it. Naama, you've got so much to share. I always leave my community with an opportunity for reflection. So in this area of getting unstuck and moving through crossroad moments in a self-connected and easeful way, what's one question women could be asking themselves more?
Oh, just one. Okay, let me think. I have 3 questions. Can I share 3?
Yes, you can. I love a good rule breaker. I love a rule
Yes.
breaker, my friend. Go ahead.
Because I feel like these 3, I always give these 3 questions. They go really well together. The first question is, so it's kind of especially when we are trying to make a decision, right? What step am I going to take? What am I going to do next? So the first question is, what does my gut say? And I know it's really simple, and sometimes it's that simple. What is aligned with my values? And does it move me closer to my vision or further away? If you can answer these 3 questions, you know what to do next. So these 3 questions together. What does my gut say? Is it aligned with my values? Does it move me closer to my vision?
That gives women a beautiful place to even take action in just journaling about or reflecting on a walk on those questions. Thank you. I feel you have a beautiful voice and offering for the world. So where can we find you, follow you, and support you?
Thank you. Instagram is where I kind of hang out. So please follow me on Instagram. It's Naama Zusman. You're probably going to put the links and everything.
Yes.
And yeah, feel free to DM me. I really try to answer and respond to every comment. I send a weekly email on every Monday morning. So if you kind of like what I talked about, if you're interested in positions and change and mindset and fear and intuition, all of these good things, these are the topics I write about. And you can join that either from my bio on Instagram, or I'll send it to you, Whitney. And that's kind of where you can find me.
Wonderful. We'll be sure to capture that in the show notes. And thank you, Naama. This was great.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.